night 2020 in Lubbock, Texas. Bloodbath, Jones AT&T Stadium. Screams of horror bursting out as the Oklahoma Sooners put up a terrifying 62 points. 2 interceptions from Trey Norwood. A standout performance from Theo Weiss. And a hat trick of rushing touchdowns from the returning Ramondre Stevenson. And after a 1-2 start, a fire has been lit beneath the Sooners. 3 straight wins as we enter Championship November. Undefeated in November since Lincoln Riley took the reins in 2017, Oklahoma will look to keep the record alive today against the Kansas Jayhawks. From the Gaylord family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium in Norman, Oklahoma, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Boomer Sooner, Kansas and Oklahoma. This is Game Day U.
Weeks over the course of a season without playing football on their home turf. However, that's the situation for the Sooners today. They return to Owen Field for the first time since September 26th. And of course, on that day, they fell in dramatic fashion to Kansas State, 38-35. Today, they welcome the Wildcats' intrastate rival, the Kansas Jayhawks, a program that hasn't beaten Oklahoma since 1997. And here to give you a full preview of the day's action, alongside Kemper Ball and Shannon Earhart, I am Parker Thune. Folks, this amounts to a virtual bye week for Oklahoma. Let's call it like it is. Kemper, I know you have plenty of Jayhawks in the family, so your take on what we're going to see today?
I do. I have 3 older brothers that went to KU. We're kind of a mixed family, but obviously we lean towards OU. I think we're going to have a fun day. I just want to see us, tune some things up, see OU get a little bit better, have some fun this week.
I agree. I'm excited to see OU come out and absolutely demolish KU. Sorry, Kemper, had to say it, but that's what I'm predicting here. I think we could all say similar things.
Well, demolition has become the norm for the Sooners as of late after beating TCU 33-14 in Fort Worth. They went out to Lubbock last weekend on Halloween night and looked pretty scary. 62-28 the final there. The Sooners dispatched the Red Raiders behind just an utter team effort all around. Every single facet of the game for the Sooners working in full force. They seem to be in rhythm any way you slice it. I think what was big last week, Kemper and Shannon, was for the Sooners to reestablish the running game. 213 yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground.
Big game, big game.
Absolutely. I think the thing that impressed me the most was just coming out of the gate. We saw OU surrender a quick touchdown to Texas Tech on their first drive, and then OU get a holding penalty that resulted in a 3-and-out in their next drive, and it looked like, oh no, we're heading for one of these wacky nights in Lubbock again. It's going to be a barn burner all the way up to the end. But then OU did the thing I've been waiting for them to do. They put their foot down. They said enough. They got to stop. They got stop after stop. They had big plays that set up touchdowns. Spencer Rattler looked as composed as I've seen him look. He's looked better and better week after week. He keeps looking better in the pocket, more composed. Ramondre Stevenson got the job done. OU scored on 6 straight drives after their 3-and-out. 6 straight drives, and resulted in 2. And they had 2 interceptions from Texas Tech, helped them out. The offense was firing on all cylinders. The defense was coming up with turnovers. It was a total team performance, like you said. I love the response. I hope we can keep it going.
And definitely now as the calendar turns to November, of course, that is a month that Lincoln Riley has not lost in during his tenure with the Oklahoma Sooners, both as coordinator and head coach. And he noted earlier in the week that the Sooners love playing football this time of year.
Really excited to get back, play in front of our home fans. Hopefully they're excited to come watch this team play. Their guys are getting better quickly, and we've had a good start to the week here, and just excited about continuing our climb. So it's been a fun stretch, and excited to get to play some November ball here, which tends to be our favorite around here.
So you hear from the head man himself. Oklahoma's really looking forward to this month, and with good reason. It's an opportunity for them to reassert themselves in the race for the Big 12 championship. Now, in that game in Lubbock, Kemper, I know you touched on it a bit before we ran the soundbite there, but what impressed you the most in the Sooners' overwhelmingly strong victory?
Yeah, it's like I touched on earlier, it's the early response for me. The way OU came out and had some adversity hit them early and then just put their foot down and kept plugging away at it. They surrendered that opening touchdown drive to Texas Tech and got down 7-0 early, but they responded. After a 3-and-out, OU gets the 6-yard touchdown run by Ramondre Stevens. Then the following drive, they get a Trey Norwood interception. Alex Grinch has been preaching about turnovers all season, and it was great to see OU finally come up with 2 when they're shutting down this momentum that Texas Tech had early. Rattler looked as comfortable in the pocket as I've seen him look. He had a ball that got dropped on the ground, should have been a fumble, and he turned it into a long gain to Stogner that set up another short touchdown run. I really like the diverse attack. They were running the ball, they were throwing the ball well, and the defense impressed me the most. Texas Tech racked up only 35 yards on their next 5 drives after scoring on the initial drive, and that's what impressed me the most from that game.
Hinting on what you said about turnovers, the turnovers is what absolutely blew me away. And did you know that actually in the past 3 games, there's been 3 or more turnovers? As you said, Alex Grinch seems to be pounding this every week into the players' heads, and it's finally delivering. We saw those 2 interceptions and those 6 forced fumbles. 17 of those points came off of these turnovers. They anticipated what was going on. Turnovers prove control game after game, and I'm happy that they're finally able to get the ball rolling there. We saw Trey Norwood coming in hot, and it rewarded with those 2 interceptions. And Gabe Burkett back in the second quarter was set up by Isaiah Thomas's fumble recovery. The defense is finally living up to the offense, and there's possession on both sides of the ball. This really is the first season that OU finally won the turnover battle between both teams. So it was great to see them come out and just absolutely dominate on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm sorry, did you say 6 forced fumbles?
Yes.
That's a lot.
That is a lot, and it's encouraging to see the Sooners jumping on those fumbles as well, as we saw with Isaiah Thomas.
It's unusual. It's nice to see finally later in the season. Hopefully that carries through.
And yet you have to acknowledge that on a certain level, turnovers are just random. You can't really account for them.
Yeah, that first Trey Norwood one was a tip drill pick that, it just bounced his way.
It's really keeping your eyes on the ball, too, and figuring out where everything is going and just keeping your headspace clear so you're ready for anything at any time. The anticipation.
And you can argue that the Sooners were gifted those early Norwood interceptions.
I'll take them. I love a gift.
By the same
I love
token,
a present.
Norwood made the play, the Sooners seized the momentum and never let up. And I'll tell you what, I think what I was most impressed with was the fact that Theo Weiss finally seemed to insert himself into the Sooner passing attack. Broke the century mark for the first time in his Oklahoma career. 5 catches, 105 yards. The biggest of those being the 48-yard catch and run where he turned a 7-yard button hook into a game-breaking play for the Sooners. And, you talk about Weiss and a guy that last year carried really high expectations as a true freshman and didn't ever quite seem to find his niche in the offense with Jalen Hurts at the helm. And it kind of took him some time to get acclimated this year with Spencer Rattler mostly looking for Austin Stogner and Marvin Mims through the first 4 or 5 games of the season. But Weiss has been very strong ever since the Red River Showdown, starting to assert himself more than anything as a 3rd down target for Rattler. He and Stoops have become kind of the go-to guys on 3rd down. Theo Weiss as well as Drake Stoops there in the slot. But
Parker, what do you think flipped the switch there? That flipped the switch from Theo Weiss to being uncomfortable to that comfortability?
I don't know if it was necessarily that he was uncomfortable before. I just think he's taken advantage of the opportunities that he's been given. Rattler's starting to look his way, and here's the thing about a quarterback and his receivers. When a quarterback starts to build chemistry with a guy, he's going to look his way more and more. And you saw that earlier in the year with Marvin Mims. I think you're seeing that again with Theo Weiss. It's just a matter of Rattler building trust in Weiss as a wide receiver, and he's getting more and more opportunities because of that reality.
Just look at what we're talking about here. Rattler looking more comfortable. The defense looking more comfortable. Weiss looking more comfortable. Everyone is just looking more comfortable as the season progresses. They're just finding a rhythm, and that's what they always do when they get to November. They're in that rhythm now.
Let me ask you this, though. Talked about the offense, talked about the defense, both of them looking more comfortable. Are you concerned at all about the special teams? Because Gabe Burkich, whom we thought was invincible, just became the first Sooners kicker to miss a field goal in 4 straight games since 2001. So, is it a case of the yips for Burkich, or is it still a blip and not a trend?
I think it's just a case of the yips. You know, you can only be perfect for so long. Nobody bats 1,000. You know, it was a matter of time. You know, he had that perfect first year at OU, didn't miss a field goal. Now he's missed a couple. I just think it's the yips. You know, he's going through something right now, but I don't think it's a larger indication of a bigger problem.
Yeah, it's inevitable. It's bound to happen. He can't, as you said, be perfect 100% of the time. So he'll get back on track. I'm not worried for him at all.
I still feel confident when he goes out there. Every time he goes out there, I still feel confident we're going to make this kick.
I'm not worried.
Are you worried that he's losing the mental edge, though? Because that's what we saw from him all last year. Every single time he trotted out there, he looked sure of himself, and you knew that kick was going to go between the uprights. Now, he's got a miss in 4 straight games. It kind of starts to seem like that confidence is eroding from Burkich. So, for kickers, as we know, it's such a mental craft, and so much of it is based on your ability to go out there, block out the noise, and execute your job. And we have seen great kickers come unglued. You look at one of the greatest, Adam Vinatieri, last year with the Indianapolis Colts, spiraling out of control. What does Gabe Burkich have to do in order to reverse this trend?
You know, I think, like you said, kicking is a real mental thing. Kickers are a little odd, and momentum swings like that. You know, you miss a few, and momentum keeps mounting. But it's a double-edged sword. It works the other way, too. You know, he hits a bomb today. He hits a couple bombs today. He's got his confidence back. He's got his swagger back. He starts making a few in a row. We've got our good old Gabe Burkich back.
It's definitely also, I think, a team thing as well, that his team needs to back him up when he misses those field goals and just push him right back up to where he was before. He's no Eddie Pinheiro. That's what I can tell you for sure. Like, Gabe Burkich, he's going to show out. He's going to rally back.
Eddie
I had to throw that in there.
What a deep cut.
Oh, that's the Bears fan in Shannon coming out right there. I want to ask you guys this, is there anything else from that game last week, and you can go back to the TCU game as well, but is there anything else that concerns you right now beyond the special teams, as I mentioned? Because the Sooners, overall, looking as strong as they have all season, is there anything that you're still apprehensive about?
I wouldn't say concerned, but I just say that I'm hoping that they don't get too ahead of themselves. Because if they do get ahead of themselves and they skip, if they consider this trap game against KU today and they just consider other games not worthy of them winning, that they're just going to sweep 100%, then they're probably going to lose and they could fall into a trap.
I agree with Shannon about not looking ahead. For me, you know, no new concerns. A lot of the same concerns. You know, they got to wrap up better. You know, got to get off the field on 3rd down. Nothing new, a lot of the same. But I like what Shannon said about, you know, not getting ahead of themselves now and just staying focused on the next challenge ahead.
I think it's definitely staying in the moment too. You got to stay present.
Certainly. Well, we're just getting started here on Game Day U. Coming up next, we'll take a spin around the Big 12. Stay with us.
Yes, I am.
Move! Give it to him hard!
No.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Why you stab me with it? No.
They want to help,
Ow.
but don't know how.
Oh, you got...
Teach your kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Back with you here on the set of Game Day U from Heisman Park, just outside Gaylord Family Oklahoma Memorial Stadium. Parker Thune here alongside Shannon Earhart and Kemper Ball. Now, folks, as we typically do at this point in the show, it's time to take a look around the Big 12, examine the conference as a whole, and it is, in a word, chaotic right now because Oklahoma State went down at home to Texas last week, 41-34. And with the Pokes loss, there are officially 0 unbeatens left in this conference. It is quite literally anyone's game. So I want to talk first about a team that's come on strong in recent weeks and inserted themselves into the conversation in the race for this Big 12 championship, a team that quite surprisingly sits at 4-2 right now, and that is Neil Brown's West Virginia Mountaineers. Kemper, what do you think of this team? Do they have what it takes to contend in this conference?
You know, there's a lot to like about West Virginia. They're real strong on defense. Like you said, they're sitting at 4-2, and they're absolutely competing for a conference championship right now. But I think, that could change by this time tomorrow because I'm just not buying what West Virginia is selling. The defense is ranked 4th in the country right now, but you know, when you look at their record, they haven't played a lot of impressive offenses. They've played against 3 backup quarterbacks in Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and Kansas State. You know, that's going to make your defense look a lot better. They picked off Kansas State's backup 3 times last week on their way to a blowout win, 37-10, which looks really impressive. But I think if you factor in the quarterback play, it really puts into perspective the level that this defense is playing at. They have not yet played, you know, I think if they had gone with Shane Illingworth the whole game against Oklahoma State probably blows them out of the water. If Skylar Thompson is still healthy, I think Kansas State probably beats West Virginia. They have not faced an offense like Oklahoma, and you know it'll be really interesting to see what happens in their game against Texas this week. But yeah, I don't buy them as a potential Big 12 champion.
I buy them, and I'm going to tell you why. They made a statement last week beating Kansas State, keeping them to only 41 yards on 23 carries. That's awful. Their defense is way better than advertised, and they have a steady veteran QB. Jarrett Dagey is phenomenal in the pocket. The trust is just there, and we see that with those deep play calls from Neil Brown. For 3 straight games, he's passed for over 300 yards and only has 1 interception. Yes, they did lose to OSU and Tech, but they still contested. The penalties were really the main factor in that game, but the defense still produced turnovers against Gundy's offense. And that's not easy to do in Stillwater with that huge crowd in that big stadium and Gundy just all up in your face. They're 4th in the conference, which is tied with OU. So if we think that OU is going to contest as a better team than they are, then West Virginia can definitely be right behind them on that same exact level.
And a couple really fantastic players up on the defensive front. Darius and Dante Stills, the brothers, all Big 12 performers at their respective positions. But no, let's not kid ourselves here. West Virginia's 4-2 record is strictly a product of the ease of their schedule thus far. Shannon, you can't look me in the eye and tell me that Texas Tech loss isn't an egregious indication that West Virginia is not as good as advertised. Because if there's one thing we learned last week in Lubbock, it's that the Red Raiders are a pretty bad team. They really are. And you know, West Virginia, Neil Brown has that program headed in the right direction. I do believe that. They're in a position where 2 to 3 years from now, I think you'll see them contending for a Big 12 title once again. But in the here and now, this team does not have what it takes to play winning football in the Big 12 simply because they don't have the offensive firepower, and that's what you need in this conference.
Parker, I have to disagree with you, and I'm going to look you in the eye and tell you one name, Letty Brown. Letty Brown, phenomenal player. He's not flashy. He's nothing flashy, but every single game he's played, he's gotten 4 100-yard games. That's phenomenal for a team like West Virginia, who doesn't have those strong guys like Chuba Hubbard or anybody else. He has Letty Brown, and that's definitely somebody that really is a big guy for West Virginia. He's put up major points and has really helped up Dakey.
I don't know that I would assert that West Virginia is a top 5 team in this conference.
I wouldn't say top 5.
Top 5? Whoa.
You got an issue with that?
Maybe. I mean, let's count them. Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, West Virginia, Texas. Yeah, I think they're in the top 5.
Iowa State?
Iowa State, yeah. Who's better? Who do you have above West Virginia in the top 5?
I would put TCU at 5.
Get out of here.
I honestly would.
And by the way, as long as we're picking nits, I think we need to address the word phenomenal, because I would not define Jarrett Dakey as phenomenal. He's a sub 300-yard per game quarterback. He is a 1 or 2 touchdown a game quarterback. He is not by any means a star. He is not phenomenal. We got to reevaluate our meaning of the word phenomenal if we think Jarrett Dakey is phenomenal.
And that offense is just such a far cry from what it was a couple of years ago in the Will Grier and David Sills era. It's not the same team that they were under Dana Holgerson, and they have a ways to go to get back there.
They're
getting there. Absolutely.
Here's what I have to say about Dakey. He, in 3 games, he's only had 1 interception. Spencer Rattler can't say the same about him for 3 straight games.
Well, actually, you can. In his last 3 games, he has 1 interception.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal the last few games. He made a couple mistakes early, a couple interceptions that I would argue were not his fault. But since then, I mean, the yards, the touchdowns, the productivity, and the efficiency is just not comparable between Spencer Rattler and Jarrett Dakey.
It's also considering our O-line versus West Virginia's O-line is way better.
Yeah.
There's no match there. OU's O-line is 100% better than the Mountaineers' O-line. So that gives it a whole new factor for Dakey versus Rattler.
Okay, Shannon, step down off the soapbox. Let's transition to the next team on the docket here. And that is the squad that Oklahoma will face off with today at Owen Field. The Kansas Jayhawks, who enter this contest at 0-6. Again, the question is simple. Will Kansas go winless this year?
Is that even a question?
Kemper Ball, as the resident Jayhawk expert, let's start with you.
My paper started flying. I think the winds were a little taken aback by
Are they the
question.
winds of change?
I'm going with no. The Kansas Jayhawks will not go winless this year. Now, the biggest reason is because I am biased. I have a KU bias. I have 3 older brothers that went to school there, so we like KU in my family, and I don't want to disparage them. But I'm going to give you some actual reasons. Quarterback Jalen Davis, a true freshman who played 0 spring ball, had no early practice, just went straight in. He looks better and better every week. KU's got some big play potential. They're moving in the right direction. I still think they've got a phenomenal coach. And you know, there's an old saying, even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I think Kansas is that broken clock, and I think Tech is that time of day. Kansas will get at least 1 win this year. I feel confident about it. And if they don't, I will lie that I said this.
Every one of your qualms with the modern media summed up in one man, Kemper Ball. There you go.
That's what I'm here for.
Shannon.
Kemper, you're so wrong. You are unbelievably wrong. KU is the laughingstock of the Big 12. Let me remind you that they haven't even put up 30 points in a single game this season. Tell me one good weapon that the Jayhawks have. Les Miles was supposed to flip this team around. It's just not happening. In the defense, hands out yards to the other team. They never have much going on and just can't produce dubs with nothing. You can't. Jalen Daniels, he's not at that college level yet. Yes, he's gotten better game after game, but he's been sacked 16 times. The O-line isn't protecting him. They have a young team, yes, I get it. But I just don't see them beating Texas, TCU, Tech. Any of those teams fall short easily. Us, I'm not even going to get started. OU will absolutely destroy them. So, Kemper, stick your Jayhawks to basketball because they are not a football team.
Well, they might be in too much trouble to stick to basketball, so I don't know if I can do that.
Oh, boy. Bill Self might be in some hot water. Is that the implication there?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Well,
Well, Oklahoma City, be the Thunder coach.
You on the inside there?
Maybe.
We'll save that discussion for the spring when we're hopefully doing Game Day U, the college basketball edition.
Maybe.
But in the here and now, here's what I'll say about the Kansas Jayhawks. Their best player is a guy named Andrew Parchment. I think that alone tells you what you need to know about the state of this program. And look, Kemper, I firmly believe that this program is on the right track. I do. Les Miles is the guy to turn it around there. And it hasn't been all that long, right? Since Kansas was actually competitive at football. They won the Orange Bowl in 2007. They've won a New Year's Six Bowl more recently than Notre Dame has.
Yes, sir.
So
Mark Mangino.
Kansas is not that far removed from some degree of success. They actually earned a vote as national champions back in 2007
From who?
in that season. I would love to know the answer to that as well. But in the here and now, Kansas will go winless in 2020. I'm sorry. It's just the reality of where the program is. They're headed in the right direction. Miles is going to bring in his guys, a new class of recruits. He's going to change the system on a continual basis, and he's going to have that program in a position to contend, I do believe, within 3 to 5 years. But
I hope you're right.
Let's think about this. What, or rather who, was front and center in the Kansas offense each of the last 2 years? Puka Williams. Puka Williams was the guy that kept Kansas in football games in a lot of cases. He's no longer there, and lest we forget, this is still a team that has lost to Coastal Carolina 2 straight years in a row. And granted, Coastal Carolina didn't turn out to be a half-bad football team this year. They're currently number 15 in the nation, but they're still a Sun Belt team. That's a team that Kansas and any other Big 12 team should be able to dispatch with some degree of ease. And the Jayhawks right now are no better than a middling group of 5 team and are certainly out of their element playing Power 5 football. You look like you want to jump in here.
You know, there's not much I can say to disagree with the state of Kansas right now. But I do have a bone to pick with what Shannon said about Les Miles just doesn't seem to be getting the job done. This is year 2 under the Miles regime. It takes time. It would be like asking the engineers on the Titanic to fix the hole from the iceberg as the ship was sinking. It takes a little while. It takes time to turn a program like that was sinking fast and deep back to anywhere close to even mediocrity. We got to give them time, give them some cushion.
Of course it does. Well, of course it does. I know that it takes time, but it's also they brought him in to bring this team up from the ground up, and that's not what he's been doing. I pray for you.
They won more games last year. They won more games last year than they have in years. They were better last year than they've been in years.
It is going to take
true.
time. It is a process. And like I said, I do honestly believe that Les Miles is the right guy for the job. If there is a coach out there that can turn Kansas around, at least one that would be available in today's market across college football, it's probably Les Miles. All right, folks, the question that's on everyone's minds halfway through the season: does the Big 12 have a path to the college football playoff? Because, as I mentioned at the top of the segment, there are no further unbeatens in the conference after Oklahoma State lost last week. So, with no unbeatens remaining in the conference, is there any path for any team in this conference to insert themselves into the college football playoff race?
I mean, is it literally possible? Yes, it is mathematically possible that a Big 12 team could find their way in. Is it going to happen? No, it's not going to happen. No 2-loss team is going to get into the college football playoff probably ever, but definitely not this year, especially when there's 1-loss teams like Georgia and Florida still floating around out there. Notre Dame is still undefeated. I know they're about to play Clemson, but if they can win against Clemson or beat them again in the ACC championship game, they're back in it. There's just too many teams that are actually still in play. Oklahoma would be the conference's best chance to get back in, and I just don't see that happening because of the 2 losses. I think a Big 12 championship and a Cotton Bowl victory is about the best OU can hope for this year.
For OU, I'd say no. It's a rebuilding year for them, and I'll stick by that. The Texas game was the turning point for the Sooners, but this year just isn't it. They lost to 2 beatable teams, so I just don't think that they're able to jump into that CFB setting. Their powerhouse teams, like you just mentioned, Kemper, Clemson, Bama, Georgia, are on fire at the moment. And looking at their schedules, it doesn't look like OU's just going to sneak right by. Even Notre Dame and Cincinnati are producing just better football than OU is. They haven't produced like they were expected to, and Spencer Rattler just wasn't the guy at the beginning of the season. Maybe it'd be a different scenario if Ramondre Stevenson and Ronnie Perkins were there at the beginning of the season, but they weren't, and we can't turn back time. So there's just not a good chance for them to even be in conversation of being in the CFP.
All right, folks, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Yes, there is a definite chance that the Big 12 could land in the college football playoff. I think if they're going to, though, that team has to be Oklahoma. And here's the reason. Here's the reason why it's theoretically possible. It's 2020, okay? 2020 has brought so much unprecedented change and so many unprecedented circumstances that if there was a year that we were finally going to see a 2-loss team in the college football playoff, if there was a year that the Sooners could rally from an early 2-game losing streak in the season and sneak into the playoff on the back end, it's 2020. We could absolutely see utter chaos in the month of November. It's not out of the realm of possibility. And while I concede that it is highly unlikely, I also will say that Oklahoma's playing just about as well as anybody in the nation over the last 2-3 games. And I think this is the team in the Big 12 that nobody wants to play right now, especially with Perkins and Stevenson back in the mix. This is not a team that anybody wants to contend with, and it took them a while to get their feet underneath them. But I think that the nation is starting to take notice of the fact that Oklahoma is a better football team than their record indicates, and that they have hit their stride as the calendar flips to November. And again, go back to the fact that Oklahoma has never lost in November, as long as Lincoln Riley has been at the school. So we will see if that can lead to at least a conversation. I don't know if they have a legitimate case, but there may be a conversation. You recall back in 2017, there was a conversation surrounding an Ohio State team that had suffered a 55-24 loss to Iowa earlier in the season and came into the discussion with two losses. Two losses.
Ohio State had 2 losses?
They had lost to Purdue, they had lost to Iowa.
I don't remember
so
that. My mistake.
It's not out of the question. That's all I'm saying. It's certainly not.
Parker, I hope you're right here, and I hope you're right. I mean, you were right with Shane Illingworth bringing it all the way back to like a bunch of shows ago. But this is a rebuilding year for OU. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. I think everybody's fine with that. And if they're not in the CFB playoff talk, no worries. They're going to get back under it and back at it again next year.
All right. Well, coming up next year on Game Day U, we'll kick you back to our Gaylord Hall studios where Kaylee Tingelstad and the studio team got the next half-hour of content for you. We'll see you at the top of the hour.
You are the national parks, and no matter who you are or where you come from, the parks are you too.
Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
We all play a role in keeping our community safe.
Every day, we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life.
It's when something doesn't seem quite right that it's time to pay attention.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
We're growing every week. Every week. Yeah, good luck.
All of our goals are still in front of us.
I'm ready to get back to work.
That's a good question.
Okay. We're back.
My dance skills are a little rusty.
Could only be found right here.
Let's go now, win a championship.
There's 8 other girls in that boat with you. And so
Haley.
Yes. Come on.
Welcome back to Game Day U, the one and only student-produced pregame show at the University of Oklahoma. I'm Kaylee Tingelstad, and I'm joined here in the studio by Ben Thomas and Parker Aples. How are y'all feeling this morning?
Pretty good.
I'm feeling great. Yeah. College football today.
Super excited for some college football. OU's back home. About time.
Palace on the Prairie, we're home.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, well, before we jump into heroes and zeros, let's send it to Dylan Rivera with the top 5 plays.
Thanks, Kaylee. We start out with Clemson and Boston College. BC jumped out early, and this catch was the highlight of it all. The ball gets batted around, but before it hits the ground, C.J. Lewis gets his hands on it. Throw 6 more on the board. Let's watch it one more time. Mario Goodrich has him covered like a rug on your floor. But does it matter? No. Lewis is even losing his balance as he makes the catch. Unfortunate for Eagles fans, this was the last touchdown of the game for BC, and Clemson steals the win 34-28. Now we head to northern Louisiana. La Tech and UAB. Quarterback Bryson Lucero throws a ball that shouldn't be thrown, and B.J. Williams makes him pay. But it's what he does next. The lateral to Bulldog teammate Khalil Ladler. And goodbye, Khalil. He takes the assist and runs it all the way home. A pick 6 TD run in by a different player than the one who intercepted the ball. The wherewithal to pitch it back to your buddy and create a better play for the team is something that'll make any coach smile. San Diego State at Utah State. The Aggies take a shot at the end zone before half, and QB Jason Shelley finds some space outside the pocket and uncorks one to the corner of the end zone, and Devin Tompkins makes an incredible over-the-shoulder catch to put Utah State on the scoreboard. Everyone on the home sideline is fired up. Tompkins finds the ball and gets just the tips of his fingers on it, all 5'7" of him laying out for the ball. And the awareness to get the foot down in bounds makes this effort a top 5 play. Now here's a bit of a rarity. 2 top 5 plays from the same game and the same player. Oh yeah, and these catches came back to back. OSU and Penn State. Sean Clifford drops back to pass and fires left. Jahan Dotson is there to make a bobbling one-handed catch. How do you do? Clifford throws a 50-50 ball, and Dotson's able to make the catch with just his left hand. And on just the very next play, Clifford looks to Dotson again. Dotson jumps up and this time only needs his right hand. He gets up and gets that big paw on the ball and finds pay dirt. Give him the number 1 play. Ben, Parker, and Kaylee, back to you.
Thanks, Dylan. Now we've seen plenty of heroes arise this season. Since not all heroes wear capes, which heroes were wearing helmets last week? Ben, we'll start with you.
My hero is coming out of the number 15, yes, 15th ranked Coastal Carolina, their quarterback Grayson McCall. Now, they won 51-0 over Georgia State last week, and this guy had himself a day. 18 for 24 with 254 yards, which is a 10.6 average, averaging basically a first down per passing attempt, with 4 touchdowns. He dotted up a very suspect Georgia State defense, not one of the better ones, but he had himself a day. He completed a pass to 10 different receivers. He's very good at spreading the wealth on the offense, which is why this Coastal Carolina offense flourishes the way it has so far this year. He's now up to a 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio with over 1,100 total yards. And yes, this man can run as well. He has over 200 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns this year, like this one as he bulldozes into the end zone. Oh, and by the way, he's only a freshman. This guy's got so many years of ball ahead, and honestly, if he continues to do what he does, I think this guy can take Coastal Carolina to a new level in terms of football status.
Hey, you know, they're doing good.
Guy.
No, I wouldn't call myself a big Coastal guy, but this guy needs to. He deserves the credit that he is getting.
Hey, he's been very good, and a lot of credit to him in Coastal Carolina. But I'm going to take it to the Big 12, and I'm going Texas defensive end Joseph Osai. Now, this guy's stats speak for themselves. 12 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, including the game winner, 1 forced fumble, and 2 recovered fumbles. I mean, he's the first player with 12 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks in a single game since 2009, the Dominic Sue. It's been over 11 years since a guy had that stat line, and he carried the Horns this week. I mean, he put them in a position to win this game, and while Sam Ehlinger played great, had some big plays in the fourth quarter and overtime, he's not even in position to win without Joseph Osai picking up that fumble right there. I mean, he single-handedly kept the Horns in Big 12 conference contention, and if Joseph Osai can keep it rolling, I think they have a chance to maybe make it to the Big 12 championship. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but the Horns, he gave them a chance.
Yeah, they definitely probably could have used a play like that when they played Oklahoma earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that guy definitely had himself a day against Oklahoma State.
Definitely
Insane.
helped them out with that one. All right, well, I'm going to bring it a little closer to home, and I'm going with Trey Norwood, the junior defensive back. He had 2 interceptions last week against the Texas Tech Raiders, and last week was his first start since 2018. He was out for a year after a knee injury during 2019 practice. And his 19 previous games before that, 17 at quarterback and the past 2 at safety. Last week was his 2nd and 3rd career interceptions, his first interception since 2018. Norwood became the first Sooner with 2 picks in a game since last year against UCLA and the first Sooner with 2 picks in a game since 2016. He really got that movement going, the momentum going with that OU defense. I mean, they held Texas Tech to 35 total yards in the second quarter. The remaining first half possessions ended with a punt, an interception, turnover on downs, interception, punt, touchdown, fumble loss, and a punt. I mean, that defense really showed up last week.
Yeah, the speed D came to play last week.
Balled out.
Definitely was surprised by Trey Norwood's play.
I mean,
being that we've known
2
what
picks,
he can do in the past.
And first start since 2018, that's amazing.
Yeah, he
he
definitely
balled out
deserved
this
some
week.
more playing time after that game.
Yeah. All right, now let's take a look at who has let their team down. Who's your 0 for this week, Ben?
We're heading down to the SEC, and my 0 for this week is Will Rogers, quarterback, Mississippi State. Now, not only did Mississippi State get blown out by Bama 41-0, this guy did not play well either. He went 24 for 37 with 154 yards, 2 interceptions, and a 39.8 QBR rating. Now, this Bama defense, got to give credit, it is a very good defense, but they have shown this year that people can put up points against them. But KJ Costello can do it. This guy came in to replace KJ Costello, and he just did that much worse. Mike Leach's air raid offense looks non-existent so far at this point in the season, and it's been due to the quarterback play. They haven't been able to get it from KJ Costello since game 1, and Will Rogers hasn't been the best backup as well. They got Vanderbilt this week, a little bit of an easier contest in terms of SEC games, so they might be able to kind of get back into their mojo like we saw week 1 against LSU. But if Mississippi State wants to compete in this SEC, quarterback play from either KJ Costello or Will Rogers has to be top-notch, as we see with play by Mac Jones and other top SEC quarterbacks, and that's why Mississippi State is where they are in the rankings and in the conference of the SEC at the bottom.
Yeah, it was a tough game for him.
Very tough game, but credit to Bama. Nice.
They had a lot of potential at the beginning of the season, and
a lot of potential. Yeah,
and it just went downhill from
there.
I'm gonna stay with the backup quarterbacks right here. I'm gonna go Kansas State quarterback Will Rogers. Now, or Will Howard. I'm sorry. Howard threw 3 interceptions and only 1 touchdown the entire game, and that 1 touchdown, the only thing he could do all game. I mean, West Virginia has a mediocre defense at best. Allowed 34 points to Texas Tech and 17 points to Kansas. I mean, he couldn't even outscore Kansas in this game. And if I'm Kansas State, and I know Skylar Thompson is out, so Will Howard's in a very tough position, but I mean, he's going to have to do a lot better. And he's got a chance to prove himself this week against the best defense in the conference in Oklahoma State. Coming down to Manhattan, it's going to be a big game for him. And if he can perform, I mean, they're still in Big 12 conference contention. They're only 1 loss. I think Kansas State has a chance. Will Howard just has to play better.
They're going to need a big game from him if they want to upset Oklahoma State today. He needs to have a much better game.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, this is a 0 if I've ever seen one. I'm going with the AAC refs at the ECU Tulsa game last Friday. The refs missed 3 calls, and they even sent out a statement. They acknowledged an officiating error that occurred in the fourth quarter. After reviewing the video on the play, the conference has determined the judgment of the replay official was incorrect. I wish I could say they only messed up on 1 call, but there was 3, and they were all in 1 drive in the fourth quarter. The AAC refs did not address the call of the incomplete pass. They ruled as complete, even though you can see the ball drag across the field. Also, one ref called a pass interference that was not a pass interference from 35 yards away. That's farther than the football flew most of the night. Also, if you really want to understand the severity of this, there is a petition on change.org to fire the refs of that game. Coach Mike Houston said, "I just don't understand. I don't know what to tell my kids after that game. We saw the calls, but you can't win. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life." I mean, it was cost them the whole entire game.
Yeah, tough blow there for ECU, your favorite team there. So
it is. Holt Nailers had it. Raji Harris, we had it, but the refs just didn't agree.
Hate when refs do that.
You hate to see it.
Okay, well, we're going to take a quick timeout, but when we come back, we'll be answering 4 questions instead of the usual 3 with our new 4th and 4 segment.
For 70 years, Smokey Bear has asked you to use fire responsibly.
Fire is due to an unattended campfire. Go time.
Here's how you can stay on the front lines of preventing wildfires. Always watch your campfire before leaving. Drown it, stir it, drown it again, and feel that the fire is out cold.
Oh, bullseye!
And you won't need a visit from these guys.
Copy that.
You can be Smokey's wingman when enjoying nature and prevent wildfires. Visit SmokeyBear.com for more fire prevention tips.
You are the national parks, and no matter who you are or where you come from, the parks are you too.
We're growing every week. Every week. Yeah, good luck.
All of our goals are still in front of us.
I'm ready to get back to work.
That's a good question.
Okay.
We're back. My dance skills are a little rusty.
Could only be found right here.
Let's go down, win a championship.
There's 8 other girls in that boat with you. And so...
Haley.
Yes. Come on. Please,
Welcome back to the Gaylord Hall Studios. It's time for the new 4th and 4. It's the 4th block, and we have 4 questions. So let's jump into it. We are now past the halfway mark, well, for most teams. Let's focus in on an SEC powerhouse. LSU, the best team in college football last year. Now the question is, was last year's performance a one-year wonder?
No, it was not a one-year wonder. I know they are 2-3 this year, and it looks bad. But I'm telling you, LSU will return to SEC glory soon enough. They had so many seniors and starters that they lost this year. Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. There will obviously be a setback after the crazy year that they had last year. But I believe when Ed Orgeron got hired that he was going to bring LSU back to a top team in the SEC, and I truly believe he can do that still. They had the number 4 recruiting class this past year. They'll have right now for next year. They're sitting at another number 4 recruiting class. So I think they're going to get those pieces in there. They're going to get back to how LSU was. I don't think they'll be at the top with Bama and Georgia still running the show in the SEC. But I do think this is just a down year for LSU. They will be back, and they will still be a force to be reckoned with out of that Southeastern Conference, and that is for sure.
I'm going to have to disagree with you, man. I think they're a one-hit wonder. They had a great season last year. Props to them. Props to Joe Burrow, but I think it's it for them. I mean, they lost so much production last year, and I just don't see them being able to get it back. And now I'm not saying they're going to be as bad as they are this year, losing to Auburn 49-11, losing to Mississippi State, who hasn't done anything since beating LSU. I don't think they're going to be that bad, but they're just going to go back to the LSU that we know and we love. 8-4, 9-3, 10-2, maybe year in, year out. Never being able to beat Bama or Florida, Georgia. They're not going to be able to get back to SEC prominence, and they're just going to keep losing. Coach O doesn't have it in him. he can't compete with a Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Dan Mullen like he should be able to. I mean, LSU, they're a good team. They got a lot of talent, but I'm not feeling it anymore. I think it's over for him.
I mean, he is competing with those Nick Sabans, though. If they're having a top 5 recruiting class and back-to-back years, he's definitely competing with those guys. I think you'll see that production slowly make its way onto the field.
I think they will get a bunch of good players, but I mean, they're still going to be rookies. They're still going to be fresh out. So I think they are a one-year wonder. The team last year, all the stars aligned for that team. It was a great team. I mean, Miles Brennan is just not really playing like he should be, especially when he's following in the shoes of Joe Burrow. And then also doesn't help with him being injured with TJ Finley and Max Johnson. Neither could get the job done last week against Auburn. I think this for sure is a rebuilding year. I don't think they have any chance of making the SEC championship or the college football championship. But also, last week Auburn had their largest margin of victory over LSU ever, and it was the most points a team has ever scored in the series. Next week, LSU is going to take on Alabama, and it is not going to look anything like that game did last year. I think it's going to be rough.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a rough game this year, but I'm just give it some time. Just give it some time. Well, I think LSU will be able to compete with the Bamas. They won't beat them, but I think they'll be able to compete with them.
Just but isn't that where LSU wants to be?
We're going to chalk it up. We're chalking it up as a championship game. We're chalking it up as a championship hangover this year. Let's just chalk it up as that.
Okay.
That's what I believe.
I don't know.
That's what I believe.
Hey, we'll see in the next couple of years.
Yeah, we will.
Guess we'll find out. All right, let's take it to a team that's showing a bit more potential. Can the Cincinnati Bearcats make it to the playoffs this year? Ben?
Yes, they can. I am all aboard the Cincinnati Bearcats train, and if you are not on, you better jump on because that train's about to leave this station. Blowout wins against number 16th ranked SMU and a very tough Memphis team. They have established themselves as a force in that American Conference, and it's shown now that they're ranked number 6 in the country. What I love about this team is there's no one guy. Yes, they have Desmond Ridder at quarterback and Jarrell White at linebacker leading this team, but Luke Fickell, who I believe is the next up-and-coming coach in college football, really has them spreading the wealth. 10 players with 4 more receptions so far this year, 4 running backs with 10 or more rushing attempts, 14 players on defense with 10 or more tackles. Everybody on this team is doing their part, and it's showing now that they're ranked 6th and knocking on that college football playoff door. They still have UCF on the schedule. They still have Tulsa on the schedule, but I really think they can just beat these teams and run away with this American Conference that is proving time and time again they do have some competitive teams in there. I'm really liking the Bearcats as a sneaky, get in number 4, be that first ever American Conference team in, and they're exciting to watch. I'm really hyping up this team because it's legit.
Hey, you know what? You convinced me. I'm saying yes, but I'm gonna have a little bit different reason. Who else is there? There's nobody else. We got Alabama, we got Clemson, and we got Ohio State. And now BYU, they're doing great right now, but who are you? Are you gonna put in a group of 5 team, or are you gonna put in an independent team? I'm going Cincinnati. And you look at the other teams. We got Florida, who has a chance, but they're going to have to beat Alabama in the SEC championship to get in. The Pac-12 only playing 7 games. I just don't see it happening, and the Big 12 is already out. They're done, and I just don't see anybody else in the Big 10. So who else is there? I mean, Cincinnati, they're dominating teams. They're playing great. I think it's going to be tough for the committee to turn them down with the little teams that are in the college football this year.
Why not have an American Conference team in the college football playoffs? I mean it's
that's
2020.
Like
it's already been a crazy year as is. So,
if Cincinnati goes to the playoffs, which I don't think they are, they will be the number 4 seed, play the number 1 team, and get destroyed. That'll be such an easy game for the number 1 team. They don't have the type of schedule that all these other SEC, Big Ten conferences have. I mean, they're in the American. Don't get me wrong. I love the American Conference, but they just do not create as much competition. They're playing Houston today, and I definitely see them coming out with a win today, but I don't see them being able to beat the teams around them. Clemson, Alabama, Notre Dame, Georgia, Ohio State. I mean, just look at it. Desmond Ridder, 944 yards and 10 touchdowns. Mac Jones from Alabama, 2,196 yards and 16 touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, 1,833 yards and 17 touchdowns. Yes, they have a great defense, but they just don't have the caliber to play these teams. I mean, Cincinnati, I just don't see it coming from them. I just don't think they can make it. And I think if we're talking about college football playoffs, we're going to look at the Georgias, Notre Dame, Clemson. I mean, those teams, not just picking the American Conference.
I would much rather have a Cincinnati, as you say, in there over another SEC team. I'd much rather,
for sure.
It's one of these years where it seems like anything goes, and it would be really cool to just see the Cincinnati Bearcats in there.
I want to see him.
That's Cinderella story.
They remind me a lot of that UCF team a couple years ago, and they didn't make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, but they had a lot more competition.
You mean the national champions? UCF that year.
That's true. 2017 champs.
The 2017.
Okay, well, we're going to jump into the future with this one to the Big Ten Championship. In a hypothetical matchup between Wisconsin and the Ohio State, can the Badgers upset the Buckeyes this year?
No, and I'm sorry to all my friends at Wisco back home, but no, they can't. Ohio State is just that good. I mean, they're going to run the show with the Big Ten this year, and I really don't think I don't think Wisco is even in competition. Graham Mertz for Wisco had a great first game, but this defense would eat him alive. And how could you go against Justin Fields, Heisman candidate, and only through 2 games so far already has 600 yards and 6 touchdowns and no interceptions. Master Teague III, former OU running back Trey Sermon, Garrett Wilson. He has the pieces on offense, and they put up points at will. And like I mentioned earlier, this defense is top-notch. They swarm you, they get to the quarterback, they cause a lot of havoc. And if these two teams met in the Big Ten championship game, I truly think Wisco could make it a game, make it competitive, but I think the points that Ohio State puts up, they would just slowly run away with it. And I just think the Big Ten is Ohio State's to lose. And I truly don't think they're going to lose it.
I'm going to have to agree with you. I mean, heck no, Wisconsin can't beat Ohio State. They can't even beat COVID. I mean, they've been losing. They've lost 2 games already due to COVID, and if they lose 1 more, they're not even in playoff or Big Ten contention. Big Ten won't even let them in, even if they do go undefeated. I mean, they have to play to win. They're losing practice now, even if they do make it to the Big Ten championship. The practice they're losing right now, Graham Mertz can't even is on a 21-day quarantine right now. I mean, Ohio State they're playing Nebraska, they're playing Penn State, they're getting better. In Wisconsin right now, they're just getting worse, and I just don't see it happening. The Pac-12 or Ohio State owns the Big Ten, and they're going to continue. I'm sorry, Michigan. I'm sorry, Wisconsin. Rutgers. I'm sorry to you guys too, for a different reason though. But I mean, it's all on Ohio State this year. They got it.
Well, I'm just going to throw out never say never. I'm going to switch it with the Justin Fields to Justin Bieber. But there is a possibility. I mean, yes, they are taking a lot of hits, and it's not from on the football field. It's from COVID. If they're not able to play any more games, if they're not going to be able to play after this weekend, 5 games, that's not going to say anything for them. So they need to get back on the field, get back to practicing, because they need to get that kind of dynamic on the field if they expect to go up against an Ohio State team. I think it's also just hard to judge their skills after their 1 win against Illinois. They have a lot of potential, but like I said, they just need to get back on the field and see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely think, from what we saw against Illinois, Graham Mertz could be the next top Big Ten quarterback.
He's a great quarterback.
But obviously it's only been 1 game, so we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. He's played 1 game, and it was a dominant game, but
yes,
we haven't seen enough from him.
Yeah, I would say keep an eye on for them next year. I think
next year.
Once COVID hopefully passes.
Took over their season this year.
Exactly.
For sure.
All right, with the Big Ten only 2 weeks in the Pac-12 starting this weekend, a number of players opting out, there might not be an obvious answer to this question. Ben, which player is going first in the NFL draft this year?
Now, you could always say Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields, but my pick, Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Now, it's not a name a lot of people know, but I'm telling you, this guy is a monster. 6'6", 330 pounds, a force on that offensive line. Nothing gets past him, all right? He was a 4-star recruit out of high school. He played as a true freshman on that offensive line guarding Justin Herbert in 2018, and as a sophomore, this man took off, becoming the first sophomore to ever win the Outland Trophy as the top interior lineman in college football, and he was a unanimous all-first-team All-American. Now, sadly, these tapes are all you're going to see of him this year as he opted out of the season to focus on the draft, but any team would be dumb to pass on this guy. People have considered him one of the best offensive linemen to come into the draft of the entire decade. I mean, this guy is a force. He is mean when blocking for his teammates, and this guy can run. He is fast. He's agile. He's, to me, one of the best offensive linemen we've seen in a while. This guy is going to make some team and some quarterback very happy.
And the amount of teams in the NFL that need that kind of player.
Every team.
Every team
needs offensive linemen, and every team top 5 and up are just waiting for this guy.
You really see the New York Jets taking an offensive lineman.
I mean, they already got their quarterback. Sam Darnold's already there. You need all the help you can get to go with Mekhi Becton that they drafted last year. You never know.
I don't know. I think we all know who they need, and they're going with a guy, we know him, we love him, Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields. I mean, he is a monster. Everybody knows it. Last year in 2019, he had 3,273 passing yards and 41 touchdowns while having 10 touchdowns on the ground and 484 yards. He's a great dual threat prospect. He can do anything an NFL quarterback needs to be able to do. He's a great runner, great passer. Coaches absolutely love him. We know that. And he can get a team to rally behind him. He's the leader that a team like the New York Jets, the New York Giants, the Jacksonville Jaguars, whoever ends up getting first round, he's a guy that they need. He's got the talent that everybody wants. And those teams, I mean, right now, you need talent. And talent is what he's going to give you. Now, Trevor Lawrence is a great pick as well, but the running ability, I think, from Justin Fields is what's really going to set him apart, and that's what's going to get him the first round, or the first pick.
Well, I'm going to take it with the quarterback, but I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence. And yes, he is out due to COVID, but I don't see that stopping him unless he comes back and just can't throw the ball, but I don't see that happening. Already in the 2020 season, he has 1,833 yards, 17 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. His longest pass is 83 yards. This kid has a serious arm. Even though he is out to COVID, I just don't see that impacting him. He will be on the sidelines this weekend, though, supporting his team, even though he won't be on the field. Another great advantage Lawrence has is that he's in the ACC conference, and they have been playing for weeks. It's a lot harder for these Big 10, Big 12 teams, Pac-12 teams, because they just haven't been playing as long. So I think the timing works in his favor.
No, yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's been a consensus number 1 since he started playing at Clemson.
I mean,
so
everybody
I'm not
loves
surprised.
him.
The Justin Fields pick I like as well. I mean, I think that's going to be Kirby Smart's biggest regret as a head coach at Georgia was letting him go.
Letting him go for Jake Fromm.
Oh, my God, Georgia would be running the show in the SEC if Justin Fields was there. With that defense that Georgia has, it would be insane. But, yeah, I think those are both.
A lot better than Stetson, for sure.
Oh, yeah, a lot better than Stetton's.
Quarterbacks.
Bennett Stetson.
Yeah, Bennett, whatever his name is.
Quarterbacks they always kind of get to the top of the draft somehow. So I see it going for Trevor Lawrence. He's been looked at for so long. He has great potential, and I think any team would be lucky to have him.
True, but Penei Sewell, man.
I don't know. I just don't think the Jets, the Giants, Jags, like I said, they just can't pass up a great quarterback like Lawrence or Fields.
True,
I mean, it's just
the Cowboys could use some O-linemen.
They could. I think Jerry's tanking for Trevor. Personally, I think Jerry Jones is tanking for Trevor Lawrence. So that's my pick right there.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens.
As we inch closer to kickoff time, the remote team is going to look at the Big 12 coaches and tell us who they see getting the boot.
My name is Jane C. I am a biochemistry, letters, and studio art major. I have a lot of memorable moments at OU, but probably the most memorable one was when I curated a show that involved artists across the U.S. to talk about racism and beauty in the Lightwall Gallery. And it was really good to see the community come together through art to talk about such an important issue. My favorite place in campus is definitely this place right here, the studio, the mess. It's all wonderful, where all my best art projects come about. If you don't have a space to make work, I feel like it's too easy not to make work. If I could describe OU in one word, it would be process, because we all come here with certain ideas, and through OU, our environment changes, the people we meet, affects us. And I think that we all go through our own process and come out at the end different from how we started.
Metal music is just screaming and growling, and that's just one subgenre of metal. There are so many different other ones. I'm Glenn Flansburgh, and I host the Crimson Metal Show. Probably most students would benefit from participating in the radio practicum. You learn how to use an audio board. You learn how to communicate with call-in artists. You learn how to conduct interviews as well as programming and pre-production work. It's a very well-rounded program that benefits a lot of different aspects of the creative media program. Anyone who is interested in music and music broadcasting, take the practicum. It's a super fun course, 1 credit hour, but you learn a lot. You know, music really helps tell a story. Having this radio station here and to really help push music and independent artists is a good thing and should be highly encouraged.
We are kicking off hour 2 on Game Day U. Parker Thune here alongside Kemper Ball and Shannon Earhart. 1 hour down, 1 to go. And folks, let's take our conversation once more into the Big 12 and discuss not the product on the field, but the men's roaming the sidelines. Let's discuss the coaches. And of course, we already touched on Neil Brown and West Virginia back at the beginning of the show. But I want to ask you guys, I think it's pretty clear to most that Lincoln Riley is the best coach in the Big 12. That is the consensus opinion. So, taking Lincoln Riley out of the discussion for the time being, who is the best coach in the Big 12 rather that does not reside in Norman, Oklahoma? Your thoughts, Kemper?
Yeah, I think for me it's the guy who's been doing it longer than anyone in the Big 12. It's Gary Patterson, the Big 12's longest tenured coach. Patterson has been with TCU for years now. He's taken them through different conferences. They've reconferenced a few different times, and they have found success every time they have. He sits at 170 and 72, and he's turned TCU into a legitimate, respectable college football program, a respectable Power 5. They were close to making the college football playoffs back in 2014. They were very close to it. They finished inside the top 10 3 times under Patterson's tenure. And they've won 6 bowl games since he's been there. He has been, to me, there's been some other guys that I'm sure we're going to talk about that have come on real strong in the last few years. But for my money, Gary Patterson has been the most consistent for the longest. And that's why I think he is the best coach in the Big 12, aside from our guy Lincoln.
It definitely backs him up, too, that he's been there for so long that he's gotten experience with every single class for years and years and years. But Matt Campbell is the best coach in the Big 12, and I'm going to tell you why. It's because he's sitting at a record above 500 in the past 5 years he's been on the team, or at the team, coaching the team. Brock Purdy is his guy, and he's been able to produce and bring him up to his full potential. He's won 3 consecutive conference winning records, and it's looking like a 4th. Matt Campbell is there to stick it out for Iowa State. And let me remind you, they beat Oklahoma this season. They came very, very close last season. So he's a great coach, and he's been a really good all-around guy. He's also a player's coach. You see him connecting with his players and how his players are consistent and give 100% effort every single game. And you see that in those post-game conferences as well, that Matt Campbell is the guy to be there.
So as long as he's better than mediocre, we're going to call him the best coach in the Big 12 outside of Norman? Is that the case?
Outside of Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley is, hands down, out of the question, best coach in the Big 12.
Well, I'll tell you what, the answer is really clear to me. I look at Chris Kleiman up in Manhattan, Kansas, the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats, and I tell you what, he is in a position where he's going to have that program, and I believe this. This might sound like a hot take, but I believe this. He's in a position where he's going to have that program contending for a college football playoff berth within the next 3 years.
Whoa.
Cap.
Parker.
Cap.
Hold
Cap.
the phone.
Cap.
No.
Hold the phone.
No, not at all. Because listen to me. Chris Kleiman had to take over for one of the most legendary head coaches alive in Bill Snyder at Kansas State last year. Stepping into those shoes is not let's be clear, it's not the same situation as it was with Lincoln Riley taking over for Bob Stoops or Tom Herman taking over in the wake of Mac Brown's departure and the brief Charlie Strong experiment in Texas. No, Kansas State is a program that has literally only ever been relevant because of Bill Snyder. So the standard is Bill Snyder, right? And Chris Kleiman stepping into the void that Bill Snyder left after retiring and coming back to coach Kansas State and then retiring again. I don't think anyone's expectation was that Kleiman was going to have that team at an 8-5 record with a win over Oklahoma in his very first season at the helm. He's also a phenomenal recruiter. He's going to have solid classes coming in for the next 3 years, I can promise you that. And I think more than anything else, Kansas State just needs everything to fall into place. I think before Skylar Thompson was lost for the season this year, before Joshua Youngblood entered the transfer portal, that program was already in a position where I would have put them right at the top of the Big 12 and in position to contend for the Big 12 title. My preseason prediction was actually Oklahoma versus Kansas State in the Big 12 title game. Now, obviously, COVID-19 and injuries have kind of wrecked things and knocked Kansas State off course for the time being.
It'll be interesting to see how Kleiman works with Will Howard and how that connection between a freshman and brand new, especially after Kleiman was coaching Skylar Thompson this entire time, how he's going to be able to create that dynamic speed of play with Will Howard and the rest of this team and how he's going to work that in there.
And let's not forget, Kansas State still controls their own destiny in the Big 12. And obviously, I don't think anyone is looking at that team as it's currently composed and saying, yes, they're going to be playing in Jerry's World for a Big 12 title a month from now. But all they need to do is win their Final Four football games, and they're there. It's in their hands.
Yeah, I got to jump in for a second. You're 100% right about, Kleiman had a tall task coming in. Bill Snyder had been there forever. I think he coached Kansas State during the Dust Bowl. I'm not 100% sure, but he's been there forever. It was hard for him to take over. But for me, when the two biggest things on Kleiman's resumes are the wins against Oklahoma the last 2 years, I think that those two wins were way more about Oklahoma than they were about Kansas State. Oklahoma played horrible against Kansas State last year. It's one of the worst games I've seen Oklahoma play in my lifetime. And I've been watching OU play football for 23 years. This year, it was the same thing. It was bad tackling. Kansas State's game plan, Chris Kleiman's game plan going into that game wasn't, let's just break every tackle. How can you game plan for that? You can't. I think it's been, I hate using the term luck, but anyone can beat anyone on any given Saturday. And I think that's what's happened a couple of times for Kleiman. And if they're so good, if he's so good and he's getting this program in a position they've needed to be in, it hasn't been that hard for other teams to get to the Big 12 championship recently. Why aren't they anywhere near that conversation? And as for your comment about them being a college football playoff contender soon, I'm sorry, no major recruits are going to Manhattan, Kansas. I don't care if the most convincing, charming man in the world is recruiting them there. No major college commit is going to go to Manhattan, Kansas. They will never be in the college football playoff. They're never going to get anywhere close.
23 years of watching OU football. Just out of curiosity, that was the one thing that caught me. What's the first OU game you remember watching?
Oh, man.
Taking it way back.
Yeah, I remember the Oregon onside kick really well. But there's definitely some games I went to. Probably some old Bedlam games. I don't know. That's a good question, though.
Do you remember Adrian Peterson's freshman year?
Oh, yeah, I remember AD's freshman year. Absolutely.
That was a fun one. Okay, on the other side of the spectrum, we just talked about coaches who have their programs trending in the right direction. Let's talk about coaches who have their programs trending in the wrong direction. If there is a Big 12 coach that gets fired mid-season or end of this season, who is it going to be?
I got nobody getting fired. I went down the list. I tried to find someone, but I just don't see it happening this year. The biggest thing is inexperience. Half the coaches in the Big 12 right now are within their second year, and that's at Baylor, Tech, Kansas, West Virginia, and Kansas State. There's a lot of cushion. I think they're getting a lot of room to breathe. I just think there's a lot of guys that they're not in position to be fired yet, even if their performance suggests that they maybe should.
You talked about a guy or a team that has a coach who's only been there for 2 years. So Matt Wells at Tech is the guy that I'm going to have to say will get fired. Maybe there's a possibility that he'll get fired. He has a 33% winning record, which is the third worst in all of Tech history. That's not very good. And he's so hard to trust. You saw versus that ISU game that Alan Bowman should have been pulled in the fourth. That game was so close. He didn't pull him and he was playing like trash. We also saw that sky kick he had against Texas when they were leading by 15. Didn't work out. Ended up running for a touchdown. This guy is just, his in-game decision making is just not there. It's atrocious. Matt Wells isn't the guy to do it. He has been trending downwards ever since he got to Tech. yes, he did start with a really from the ground team, and he's never been known to bring a team up from the ground, especially when he's at Utah too. He's not the guy to do it, I'm telling you guys. Matt Wells, sorry, there's too many Matts going around, will be the guy that gets fired if it's anybody.
Man, she's calling for Wells' head in his second year. She's calling for Les Miles' head in his second year. She has no patience.
Margin for error with Shannon.
No patience, no patience.
It's national title immediately or bust.
Yeah, but Matt Wells has made so many errors in that small, tiny margin with a Tech team that is not good, horrible. That's not okay for him to just keep calling horrible plays.
Let's talk about a program and a fan base that has a stunning lack of patience. That is the folks down in Austin, Texas. And that's why I believe that if there is a Big 12 coach fired at the end of the year, it's going to be Tom Herman. Because guess what?
Woo.
He hasn't brought Texas back to the cusp of college football playoff contention. And they don't like waiting down in Austin. They don't. None of those donors, none of those fans like waiting. And we saw that when they ran Charlie Strong out of town after just 3 seasons. I think Tom Herman is headed in a very similar direction because in his 4th year at the helm, Texas has, I mean, if they've taken a step up, it hasn't been a huge step. And you combine that with the fact that over the past month, he's lost 3 of his top recruits in the next 2 cycles. Things aren't looking good for Tom Herman in Austin. And I think it was very telling that there was as much of a celebration in the locker room as there was last week's victory over Oklahoma State, because beating Oklahoma State should not be cause for that degree of celebration. And to me, the fact that that is the standard in Austin, Texas, does not bode well for Tom Herman's future.
I think the big question is, does their hatred of waiting outweigh Tom Herman's $20 million buyout that they would have to pay him if they fired him this year?
Well, you know who's got the money to do it is Texas Athletic Director Chris Del Conte. All right, coming up next year on Game Day, you will take a spin around the prep scene in Oklahoma with Kaylee Tinglestad and the studio crew. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's harder whenever there's a bigger group. Pretty much a good day for me would be people leaving their hands off of me. I'm always called names. Everywhere that I go, there's always someone calling me names, calling me gay. I've been choked, thrown up against a wall, punched. Nobody's ever tried to help me.
My name is Sadaf Imani, and I'm majoring in aviation with a concentration in professional pilot at the University of Oklahoma. I was born and raised in Iran. I immigrated to the U.S. with my family when I was 11, and that was difficult because I didn't know any English before coming here, so I had to dive into school and basically do everything that a normal student would do. When I decided that I wanted to study aviation, a lot of people did not support my decision. They actually said a lot of negative things and basically discouraged me and said you can't be a good pilot because you're a woman and you have to raise a family, things like that. But if it's something that you really want to do and you know within yourself that you have it in you, then you have to pursue it for yourself and not listen to what other people tell you.
Welcome back to Game Day U. While we love talking about college football, we can't resist some Friday night lights. Let's look at some of Oklahoma's rising football stars. On Thursday night, the Bigsby Spartan and the Booker T. Washington Hornets faced off on ESPN, and Spartan running back Braylon Presley put on a show. 419 all-purpose yards and 5 touchdowns on national TV. Presley has only had one Power 5 team offer him as today, but his phone surely will be ringing after his Thursday performance. And last night in Blanchard, it was the Lions and the Tuttle Tigers fighting for the 4A District 2 title. And this one was a barn burner. Wait till you hear this final score, 7-0. 3 Tuttle turnovers and 1 touchdown toss from Colby Langford to Lincoln Smith sealed the win for the Lions. Well, guys, the Pac-12 is finally back and will start their 6-game season. Which team from the conference is worth watching? Ben?
My pick is the number 12th ranked Oregon Ducks. Now, they finished a fantastic year last year, finishing in the top 10, and I think that they can do this about the same. Now, they lost Justin Herbert, quarterback, which is a huge loss, and that offense that averaged 433 yards per game and 35 points per game is definitely going to miss him. But especially with a new offensive coordinator and some questions at quarterback, it's going to be a little shaky about this offense, but they still got playmakers on that side of the ball. C.J. Verdell at running back, Johnny Johnson, Jalen Redd at wide receiver. These guys are playmakers. They are able to make plays, and that defense is one of the best defenses in college football. Isaac Slade-Matadia, Noah Sewell, Kevon Thibodeau. I mean, these guys got playmakers all over the field. D-line's ferocious. Linebackers are fast. DBs can make plays. I mean, this team has got everything except that quarterback spot basically sealed. So they're definitely my team to watch. I think they can compete for college football playoffs, and I definitely think they will compete for the Pac-12 championship. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely the team to beat. But, hey, I think I might got a team that can beat them.
All right.
I'm going down south to Arizona State Sun Devils. Now, Arizona State is coming off a huge season last year with upsets over number 6 Oregon, and they're coming off. They went 8-5 last year. But I think Coach Herm can turn them around this year and make them a Pac-12 championship contender. Jaden Daniels is coming back after an impressive freshman year, going with 2,943 passing yards and 17 touchdowns, while adding 384 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. And he's looking for a better sophomore campaign this year. Daniels has a lot of talent, great deep ball, and he's getting his best receiver back, Frank Darby, who had 31 receptions for 616 yards and 8 touchdowns last year. I think Arizona State's a force to be reckoned with, and if I'm Oregon, USC, Washington, I'm looking out for him.
Oh, yeah. Herm Edwards has something brewing down at Arizona State. That is for sure. He's been building a good program.
All right, well, I'm going to take it to Washington with the Washington Huskies. I think this is going to be a good team to watch this year, and if you were excited to watch them this week, then you'll have to wait another week because a Cal player tested positive for COVID-19. For weeks, Washington head coach Jimmy Lake has refused to announce the starting quarterback. The options are graduate transfer Kevin Thomas, redshirt sophomore Jacob Sermon, redshirt freshman Dylan Morris, and Ethan Gabers. Kevin Thompson is a great option. The 6'1", 200-pound graduate student was the 2019 Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year with 3,216 yards and 27 touchdowns. And Elijah Molden with the defense, he led Washington in both tackles and interceptions last year. This team is going to be a little rocky. It's a pretty new team, but I think they have a lot of potential.
Yeah, I mean, Washington used to be that team to beat in the Pac-12 with Oregon for a good amount of years. They have kind of fallen off a little bit, so it'd be nice to see them kind of come back, return to their glory, and be a team that can compete in the college football playoffs.
And with only 5 games, I mean, there's not a lot of pressure there. They're not going to make the big Pac-12 championship. So I think it's just a good year to figure out the dynamic on the field and just kind of go play some football.
Yeah, definitely. I think they're the team in the North that Oregon is most worried about for sure. I mean, they got some talent down there.
Oh, they definitely do. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, well, keeping it in the family of the Pac-12, let's look at the players. Which player is going to make the biggest impact during this short season? Ben?
Mine is Keaton Slovis, quarterback out of USC. Now, last season, he replaced JT Daniels when he got injured as a freshman, and man, this guy had a fantastic season. 72% completion, 3,500 passing yards, a 30-to-9 touchdown to interception ratio in a Power 5 conference as a freshman. I mean, this dude has not shied away or fallen under the pressure, and I truly believe that these numbers will only improve. He may have lost top receiver Michael Pittman Jr., but he still has Vave Malapia, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tyler Vaughns. He has a big offensive line. He's more of a pocket guy. He doesn't really run. He doesn't really, expand the play much, but he has a powerful and accurate arm, and he's not going to contend for the Heisman this year. I'm not saying this is his year, but I think he can make a run for it next year if he can have a really good sophomore year.
2021 Heisman hype for Slovis?
I'm giving it to him. I mean, not only that, I think he has the potential to be a really good NFL quarterback prospect. I really think teams should start paying attention to Keaton Slovis.
I mean, USC is another team to be looking out for this year. I mean,
they're going to be good.
Oh, definitely. I mean, they're not like where they used to be with the Reggie Bush and the Matt Leinart. They're obviously not that. But they're definitely a team that can still win some ball games and maybe even, ruin some teams' chances. I really think so.
I mean, I think they're the favorites in the Pac-12 South right now for sure. I don't think anybody can compete with them right now. And while I did say Arizona State is a team to watch for, I think that USC right now is the team that people should watch out for in the South.
Oh, definitely.
I agree.
All right, now for my pick, I'm going to go with Oregon running back C.J. Verdell. This 5'10", 210-pound running back is a speedster. He's a beast. Last season, he had 197 carries for 1,220 yards and 8 touchdowns, including multiple huge runs like this one you see on the screen. He had multiple 200-plus yards game last season. And with Justin Herbert gone, it's C.J. Verdell's offense this year. Oregon has a freshman quarterback in Tyler Show taking the helm, which means they're going to rely heavily on the run game. So it's up to C.J. Verdell to see if how good Oregon's going to be. This is the first time since 2016 that Oregon hasn't had a star quarterback, and that year they went 4-8. So I think this is going to be a big one for Oregon. If C.J. Verdell can get it going, then Oregon's going to be very good this year.
No, yeah, he definitely needs to get his touches. I think with a young quarterback, questions at that, I think if you can have a running back that you can rely on to get a lot of yardage, whether that's in the running game or the passing game, that just expands your whole offense and really takes a lot of pressure off that potentially young quarterback jumping into such a big offense.
For sure.
Like
get him
Oregon.
developed. Give him
some time.
Yeah.
I mean, and that quarterback will have pieces. Johnny Johnson III, Jalen Redd, like I mentioned. I mean, C.J. Verdell is going to run that offense, but there's other pieces that can help him out as well.
Yeah, I think Oregon's biggest question mark has to be the offense. I think they have a solid defense, but the offense is something they're really going to have to work on this year if they want to be up there with all these other great teams.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, I'm going to keep it with Oregon, but take it to the defense. I'm going with freshman inside linebacker Justin Flo. He is the second highest-rated player to ever sign with Oregon, a 5-star prospect, top 11 player in the nation, number 1 inside linebacker and top defensive player in California by ESPN, Rivals, and 24/7 Sports. He finished his high school career with 434 tackles, 24 sacks, 48 tackles for loss, 10 forced fumbles, and he had over 27 career games with double-digit tackles. And also, the list of colleges that recruited this kid is crazy. Alabama, OU, Illinois, Georgia, all these great teams wanted this kid. He's a beast.
Oh, yeah. Watching that highlight tape there, him body slamming the dude. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely watching this guy after watching
He's got
that.
my attention now for sure. Unbelievable. That was insane.
Exactly. Another ferocious player on that defense. I mean, they just got animals on that defense.
That defense,
everywhere. Everywhere coming at you.
If I'm on Pac-12 offense, I'm scared. I'm scared.
I'd be terrified.
Yeah, Oregon defense is something to be scared of this year. I
100%.
mean, all these linebackers are really going to give any offense a lot of trouble. Okay, well, when Game Day U comes back, we'll send it to the remote team for call-outs, final words, and score predictions.
My name is Jane C. I am a biochemistry, letters, and studio art major. I have a lot of memorable moments at OU, but probably the most memorable one was when I curated a show that involved artists across the U.S. to talk about racism and beauty in the Lightwell Gallery. And it was really good to see the community come together through art to talk about such an important issue. My favorite place in campus is definitely this place right here, the studio, the mess. It's all wonderful, where all my best art projects come about. If you don't have a space to make work, I feel like it's too easy not to make work. If I could describe OU in one word, it would be process, because we all come here with certain ideas, and through OU, our environment changes, the people we meet, affects us, and I think that we all go through our own process and come out at the end different from how we started.
Metal music is just screaming and growling, and that's just just one subgenre of metal. There are so many different other ones. I'm Glenn Flansburgh, and I host the Crimson Metal Show. Probably most students would benefit from participating in the radio practicum. You learn how to use an audio board. You learn how to communicate with call-in artists. You learn how to conduct interviews as well as programming and pre-production work. It's a very well-rounded program that benefits a lot of different aspects of the creative media program. Anyone who is interested in music and music broadcasting, take the practicum. It's a super fun course, 1 credit hour, but you learn a lot. You know, music really helps tell a story. Having this radio station here and to really help push music and independent artists is a good thing and should be highly encouraged.
Well, we're back to wrap things up here from outside Owen Field. Here we are in Heisman Park, situated between Steve Owens and Billy Vessels. I am Parker Thune, alongside Shannon Earhart and Kemper Ball, as we draw nearer and nearer to kickoff between Oklahoma and Kansas. Kemper, we go back to your affinity for the Jayhawks. Maybe you have a bit of insider knowledge here, but what can we expect from Kansas today? What are they going to bring to the table? The 0-6 Jayhawks with Les Miles at the helm. What could they possibly do to disrupt Oklahoma's rhythm today in Norman?
Well, like most of my KU insider information, it is based in a place of bias, because I am biased towards KU. I have said that before. But I think it's going to be a little bit closer than people expect, mainly because people expect OU to come out and win this thing by 1,000,000 points. I think we're going to sweat a little early. I think it's going to be kind of like the Tech game that OU had last year, last week, where Kansas could come out and score early, and OU could look a little sluggish, maybe look like they're having a look-ahead game this week. Just be a little sluggish, a little slow getting started, and I think we could be looking at, 10-7, 14-7, 14-14, something in that ballpark early. I expect OU to pull away after that, but I think at first we're going to have some cause to sweat.
You said 14-14.
I think we could get there at some point. I think that could be on the scoreboard early.
Interesting take there. I, on the other hand, 100%, almost 99% guarantee you that the offense will not put up more than 20 points. So you're 14 out the window. Maybe that's the only 14 they get the whole game. Jalen Daniels, yet to throw a TD. So what makes you think he can do it against Alex Grinch's speed D? Alex Grinch, again, is not messing around. He's not messing around. And from the looks of Trey Norwood last week, KU's in for an ugly ride. Hate to say it, hate to burst your bubble, Kemper, but the Sooners have held both Tech and TCU to under 30 points. They'll probably hold Kansas to maybe 14, maybe, if they're lucky. If the defense for OU has to mess up big time for KU to rack up a bunch of points. There's no chance that KU will be able to put up more than 20.
Well, what can you do when you're overmatched in every sense of the word? You can throw the kitchen sink at your opponent. And that's what I expect Kansas to do here today. Look, we've seen Kansas make use of the Wildcat already here in 2020. It wouldn't surprise me if they rolled that out and made that a prominent feature of their offense. But Kansas is going to have to get it done by hook or by crook. They're just going to have to do whatever it takes to move the ball down the field. And I don't know, when you're as overmatched as the Jayhawks are, if you can really formulate a traditional game plan simply because you know that at every single position on the field, you're going up against somebody that is better than you. So I expect that if Kansas is serious about contending in this football game, they're going to get really, really creative and try plenty of trickery to try and keep pace with the Sooners, because let's be honest, that's about the only chance they have here today in Norman.
Just real quick, something Shannon said, I think you might have heard me laugh about it. How can you expect Jalen Davis to throw a touchdown against Alex Grinch's speed defense? Being worried about Alex Grinch's speed defense would be a unique sensation to about 7 Big 12 offensive coordinators. That's not a thing that they get worried about. I'm going to go back to a cliche that I used earlier, which is that a broken clock is right twice a day. OU's defense is a broken clock. And they were right against Texas Tech. I don't know if they're going to do it 2 weeks in a row.
Kemper, you're not right. Have you seen the defense step up the past 3 games? They've been so good, and they've come to play. What makes you think that they're not going to drill Kansas to the ground?
I'm not saying that there hasn't been improvement. I've been one of the biggest defenders of OU's defensive improvement this year. But what I'm saying is the defense does not propose a world-beating challenge like you say it does. No, and I'm not saying Kansas is all that great. I'm not saying they've got the weapons to compete with it, but I think they can get it done. They can get a couple points.
Kemper, you also just referred to Jalen Daniels as Jalen Davis, so
Oh,
clearly the broken clock is not right twice a day in your case. But
Hey,
moving right along here on Game Day U, let's get to our call-outs. Which Sooner player are you calling out in this matchup here today, Kemper? Who you got your eye on?
Freshman running back Seth McGowan. He hasn't been, trending negatively or anything. Hasn't been playing bad. I would just like to see him do more this week. With Ramondre Stevenson back and TJ Pledger still looking great. I think we're going to see those two kind of emerge as a dynamic duo. But you know what's better than a dynamic duo? A terrific trio. I would like to see Seth McGowan work his way in there, kind of get some more touches, and really be a factor in the passing game specifically. I'd like to see them get him the ball in the passing game. We'd just like to see him produce a little bit more.
I'm not calling out a player. I'm calling out Coach Lincoln Riley. We talked about it a bunch of times already on this show that he's been undefeated the past 3 years he's been here in November. Lincoln, you need to keep your guys cool, calm, and collected. You need to replicate what you've done the past 3 years. If you can do this, then you are going to be able to drill. As I said before, drill, pound, nail Kansas to the ground. Step up.
I got my eye on Mikey Henderson, who against all odds has managed to carve out a pretty significant role in this Oklahoma offense for a true freshman, especially for a true freshman at the H-back position. Oklahoma boasts two phenomenal H-backs in Austin Stogner and Jeremiah Hall, and another one that hasn't seen the field quite as much due to injury and COVID-19 protocol in Braden Willis. But going into the season, Mikey Henderson was fourth on the depth chart at H-back. He's seen pretty significant time, all things considered. And last week, against Texas Tech, he notched his first career touchdown on that 6-yard end around. So, hey, Mikey Henderson, validate your strong performance early in the season tomorrow against Kansas, because I fully expect that you're going to get plenty of snaps. The second teamers are going to be in no later than the third quarter in this game,
Agreed.
I do believe, for the Sooners. And so I do expect that, as we saw last week, Henderson gets touches. It comes down to whether he can continue to make the most of the touches that he does get. And he's a guy that I think has a tremendous ceiling in this offense down the road. And it's nice to see him already contributing at a meaningful level as a true freshman.
That's a good point that you made, too. We're going to see a lot of those second, third stringers. So having those players really get an opportunity to play against a Big 12 team will be interesting to see.
All right, final words, folks. What are your final words here today?
For me, my final word is just fun. Let's just have some fun today. As much as I like to prop up Kansas, they're not going to put up much of a fight. OU's probably going to blow them out. OU hasn't had a home game in 6 weeks. It's been a stressful week. Let's just have some fun. Stay safe, stay socially distanced, wear a mask. But let's just enjoy it. Have some fun with our KU bye week. Get another win in the column.
That may be the shortest final word in the history of this program. So
short,
props
sweet,
to
and to
you.
the point.
Brevity is the paramount quality of media writing. So
compared to every single word that you've had, which is like 4 syllables, no. My word is composure. The Sooners need to come out and not frazzle themselves and not come into a trap game. This is the easiest team to beat in their conference, and they know that, but they need to keep that level head composure and just control the game from the get-go. If they do that, it's going to be an easy win and a fun game.
Fun.
For the Sooners.
Let's keep it fun. I like that. All right, my final word today is mundane, because to me, that's what this game should and will be for Oklahoma. It will be a walk in the park. The Jayhawks do not match up well with Oklahoma at any individual position, much less as a team. And I do believe that, all things considered, the Sooners should be able to salt this game away by halftime. So I would like to see Oklahoma come out, put the pedal to the metal, and make this game as quotidian as possible, because that's what it needs to be.
There's that bunch of syllable word right there, quotidian.
That's 4 syllables.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, five is stretching it, but come on, 4 syllables.
4.
Yeah, there you go. All right, final score predictions. Kemper, what do you got?
I got 41-14. I said that it's going to be close early and that the OU could sweat a little bit, but ultimately they're going to pull away. They're going to blow this thing out. We're going to have some fun.
So you're expecting them not to surpass 20 points?
No.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Awesome. Glad we're on the same page there. Because I'm going 72-14. OU all the way. Yes, that is an extremely high number. But with the numbers they put up last week against Tech and the team they're playing this week, I expect the Sooners to absolutely blow the Jayhawks out of the water. So 72-14. I'm not great at predictions, but this one I'm feeling very confident about.
I tell you what, I'm going to need a fact check on this, but you may need to go back to 2008 and that legendary Oklahoma team that ultimately made a run to the national championship to find the last time that the Sooners put up 72 points in a game. So I will be duly impressed if you turn out to be correct and Oklahoma can hang that many points on the scoreboard here this afternoon.
They got the weapons to do it. And KU hasn't won a game in 10 games.
If they had the starters in for all 4 quarters, sure. But they won't.
Hey, you never know. Second stringers are always hungry, ready to show out.
I miss Puka.
Okay, yeah. That's an unfortunate
Kemper's inner
loss
Jayhawks
there.
fan coming out yet again. My final score prediction is 59-7. I don't have much to add to what these two have already said because, as I previously said, I think this game is going to be as mundane as it could possibly be. Oklahoma put a big lead on the board by halftime and coast to an easy victory over the Jayhawks, sending them to 0-7 and improving the Sooners' record to 5-2 in advance of their bye week. And of course, after the open date, you got Oklahoma State coming to town for a big Bedlam matchup, and that's when we will see you next, right here on Game Day U. But we're not done here. Kaylee Tingelstad and the studio team will take you the rest of the day. We're going to sign off from here outside Heisman Park. For Shannon Earhart and Kemper Ball, I'm Parker Thune. Take care, everybody.
I'm a firefighter.
A teacher.
I'm a farmer. I'm a barber.
A waitress. A mom.
We're all part of your community. Every day we move in and out of each other's busy lives.
It's easy to take for granted all the little moments that make up our everyday.
Some are good, others not so much.
But that's life. It's when you experience a moment of uncertainty, something or someone's behavior that doesn't seem quite right.
These are the moments to take a pause.
Because if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not.
It's not about paranoia
or being afraid.
It's about standing up and protecting our communities.
One detail at a time.
Because a lot of little details can become a pattern.
We
trust our instincts.
Just like you should.
Because only you know what's not supposed to be in your everyday.
So protect your everyday.
If you see something suspicious, say something to local authorities.
Welcome back to Game Day U. We have a little bit of time left, so let's wrap it up the show with our picks of Week 10 of college football. First off, Ben, which game should the people at home have on their TV?
The game that people should have on their TV is Army versus Air Force. Now, who doesn't love a battle between our nation's armed forces? I mean, it's not Army-Navy, which is like the big game of the year, but this game is still worth watching. Army, 6-1, ranked team. They're doing really well this year. Air Force, not so much, but still worth it just because it's the Army, it's the Air Force. Why wouldn't you watch a game?
Everybody loves an armed forces
Everybody
game.
loves an armed forces game. Come on. That's one of the best.
I think I'm going to go to the Big 12 here. I'm going to go with Texas and West Virginia. This is a huge game for both teams. Now, both are came off upsets over the two only undefeated teams last week in the Big 12. And this is a huge one for Sam Ehlinger and the Horns. I mean, every game that the Longhorns play from here on out, Tom Herman's job is on the line. And I think he knows that. We all know that. He has to have a big game today, and he's got to get his boys ready. Because the Mountaineers, they're a real deal. They're the real deal.
They're coming off that big win over K-State.
37-10 over Kansas State. Joseph Osai has to get his boys ready to go again. He's going to have a big day against the Mountaineers today in Austin.
I'm definitely going to be watching that game. That's
for
sure.
A lot of Big 12 games this year are just very unexpected. You never really kind of know. Usually it's OU at the top and we're going to win them all, but there's a lot of good teams this year kind of just switching places.
Yeah, you never know what's going to happen in a Big 12 game this year.
No, you really don't.
Big 12's looking competitive, top to bottom this year. I mean, there's a lot of teams competing for that Big 12 championship game. So it's looking good. It's definitely looking good for the Big 12.
Well, I'm going to keep it in the Big 12, and I'm going to go with OSU and K-State. Those two teams that Texas and West Virginia are coming off of, I think it's going to be a good game. I mean, that's a big game for the Big 12 to watch out for because we still have to play OSU, and we got beat by K-State, so I think it'll be a really good game to watch and kind of show what's going to happen in 2 weeks from now with Bedlam.
Yeah. I mean, K-State, I think they could upset Oklahoma State here. I think
I don't know about that one.
I think Oklahoma State
without Skylar Thompson?
Yeah, I mean, I think Oklahoma State could pull an OU and have back-to-back losses and back-to-back wins. I think it's possible.
I just don't see it. I don't see it.
I think it will come down to your zero of the week in Will Howard.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it's going to come down to is can Kansas State get the production that they usually get from like a Skylar Thompson? If Skylar Thompson was in this game, I 100% would take Kansas State.
I would think that if it was Skylar Thompson. But, I mean, Sam Ehlinger struggled against this Oklahoma State defense. And if he did, I just don't know if Will Howard will be able to do much against him.
I think it'll be an interesting game. I think it'll be closer than a lot of people expect.
Yeah.
At least in that game.
I mean, Spencer Sanders, too, he's been really showing up these past couple weeks. The transition OSU made from their game against TU to now is crazy. So they're definitely a lot better of a team.
Hey, I'm saying Shane Illingsworth for the Pokes. I think they should start him today, now.
I think Chuba Hubbard's been slacking.
He has. For
sure. I really think he's been dropping the ball a little bit. I thought he was going to have people are expecting him to have a monster year, and really he's been a force, but he hasn't really been the Chuba we expect. So I'm looking to him to have a big game today, hopefully.
All right, Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines are seemingly onward a downward spiral, but their opponents seem to be on the upswing. Michigan and Indiana. Ben, who do you think?
I would love to take the Hoosiers, but I think the 2-0 for them is a fluke. I also don't think they won that game against Penn State, so I'm taking Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. I usually don't like taking Jim Harbaugh in Michigan personally because I don't think they're that great. But over Indiana, I think they will beat them. And like I said, Indiana 2-0, good team. Penix Jr.'s a tank, but I think that their 2-0 is a little bit of a fluke. I think they're going to come back down to earth here. I think Michigan's just the better football team.
I'm going to agree with you. I got Michigan. I think Harbaugh and Joe Milton, they're going to bounce back after a tough loss last week against Michigan State. But, hey, Michigan's not playing a rival, so that means they actually have a chance today. So
that means they'll probably win.
Yeah, if they're not playing a rival, then, hey, they got a chance. But if they're playing Michigan State and Ohio State, it's over. But I got the Wolverines here today.
I'm going to have to go with Indiana on this one. I think this team, they have a lot of power. They're coming off this 2-0 win, and they're ready. I mean, I see a lot of potential from them. I know Michigan's a great team, but Indiana's bringing a lot this year, and I don't see anything stopping them.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I got to ask you guys. Do you think that touchdown that 2-point conversion was legit? Do you think he actually got the ball across the plane against Penn State? Because personally, when I look at those replays, I don't see it. I don't see how that ball crossed the plane. I don't think Indiana should
They
beat
called it
Penn
on the
State.
field, and it was pretty tough to overturn. It was.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
Centimeters.
It was so
very close
away. So
it was so little, but I just don't see it, and that's why I think anybody beats Rutgers in the Big Ten. So that's why so their next game was Rutgers. That was not a big thing. That's why I think it's a fluke. But I think Harbaugh and them will respond after Michigan State, which they should have won.
I think they will.
Especially after their big game against Minnesota.
I think they're on a Minnesota high, and it just didn't carry.
I mean, Michigan has won 24 straight meetings with Indiana, so
Make it 25.
But hey, if anybody were to upset Michigan today, it would be Indiana. So Indiana can definitely do it.
Okay, well, we're going to take it down south with this one. One of the biggest SEC matchups with Florida and Georgia. Ben, Gators or Dogs?
I'm rolling with the Gators. Got to get the chomp going. I'm rolling with the Gators here.
Oh, yeah.
I think the Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts Jr., they are unstoppable. I think that Georgia defense is really good. We'll be able to contain Florida for a little bit, but Florida's been on the rise this year. I'm liking them. Georgia had a really not so dominant game against Kentucky last week, only winning 14-3 in a game they probably should have dominated. But I'm liking Florida. I think it's their time this year. I had them facing off against Bama in the SEC championship game and possibly taking a spot in the college football playoff. So I'm rolling with the Gators, going with the chomp. Gator chomp all day.
Well, great pick again. I'm going Florida as well. I think Kyle Trask is just going to be too much for that offense, or too much for the Georgia defense. And Stetson, just for the Georgia quarterback, he's just not good enough. While Florida's defense has been pretty atrocious this year, to say the least, I still think they'll be able to get it done and do good enough, and Kyle Trask is going to dominate. I think it'll be a close game, but I got Gators by a touchdown or so.
I completely disagree. Georgia has one of the most physical offenses and defenses in the country, and also the best defense in the country. I don't think Kyle Trask and the Florida offense can do anything against this Georgia defense.
But I also don't think Stetson Bennett can do anything.
Hey, no
against
George
Florida
Pickens.
But the atrocious Florida defense.
I would take Kyle Trask having a better game than Stetson Bennett, and I think this game will come down to which quarterback is going to ball
But Georgia
out
has
more.
the better defense than Florida does.
That is true, but we've
Hey,
seen
but
Florida can put up points. Florida and SEC defenses haven't been that great this year.
Georgia's
so
best
far.
receiver's out, too. George Pickens, I mean, without him, I just don't see any way that they can get it done.
I truly think Florida even having one loss so far is a surprise. I really had them thinking that they were just going to walk.
I think the A&M game was a fluke.
Yeah, I really think so, too. I think this team's legit. I think they're a legit contender. And Georgia is also a legit contender, but Georgia just, I don't know. I just got that gut feeling. I got that gut feeling that Florida is going to take it
14 points against Kentucky?
14 points against Kentucky is not good enough to. I mean, in the only loss against A&M, they still were able to put up 38 points.
But Georgia's one loss is Alabama, a way better team than I would say A&M.
And they lost by over 20.
But they lost by like 20.
They held it for a long time, though.
They did.
I think also Alabama's a way better team than Florida.
Yeah, Bama's on a whole other level.
That's
than these
Bama,
teams.
and we got Florida, and we got Georgia. Right
It's like Bama, and then it's the teams that can compete with Bama, and these two are the top teams to.
So y'all are thinking for the SEC championship, it's going to be Florida and Alabama?
I think it's the winner of this game.
Yeah, the winner of this game for sure, but I got Florida. I think it's going to be Florida.
I think it's going to be Florida. I think it's their year. I think it's just like
I definitely have. I think if it's all about position and the play skills, I think Florida or Georgia's going to come out and they're going to be ready to fight. They're going to tire out this offense, and if the offense can't keep it through the first half, I mean, there's no way they're going to keep going. I think the defense, their first goal is just to tire them out.
Yeah, definitely need to get some stops.
All right, now to the battle of the ACC, Clemson and Notre Dame. Can Notre Dame lead a conference for the first time ever, or is Clemson holding on to their crown? Ben?
Exactly that. Clemson will be holding on to their crown. I'm a big believer that Ian Book and Notre Dame is overrated, and they are always overrated. Until they are in a conference, I will not take them for anything, and I will stick by that. After getting blown out by Clemson in the college football playoffs a couple of years ago, I think it's going to be something like that again. I think that, they are without Trevor Lawrence, but DJ backing him up, I'm not pronouncing that last name, that's too tough, but DJ backing him up can definitely step in and win them ball games. I mean, he is still probably the better quarterback on that field than Ian Book. And so I'm going to take Clemson. I really like Clemson this year, and I cannot believe in Notre Dame. If they get a win today, I might start believing a little bit, but I don't think so. Clemson's just too good.
And I'm going to have to agree with you again. I mean, Clemson, for sure. I mean, I think their defense is just so good, and I think Ian Book is going to struggle a lot. I mean, Ian Book struggled against Georgia Tech. That Clemson beat by, 70, I think? They dropped 77 on him. Ian Book got 31. I just think Clemson is just too big, too power. I mean, even going into South Bend, I think DJ is going to do enough. Travis Etienne is just going to go off. I bet I'm predicting over 100 yards for him, a couple touchdowns. I think Clemson is just going to come out, and it's going to be closer than I think you said. But I think Clemson's got it by, I'm going to say 7-10.
Yeah.
I got Clemson for sure.
I think I'm going to have to favor Notre Dame on this one. I mean, Clemson is at a disadvantage without Trevor Lawrence. We're in Indiana. I mean, it's going to be hard. Notre Dame is leading the ACC in scoring defense and in total defense, ranked second in efficiency. This defense has allowed 62 points in 6 games, which is their fewest since 2012. I just think they have a strong defense. I think DJ's a great player. He wasn't intimidated last week by the Boston College defense, but Notre Dame is a lot bigger of a defense, stronger, tougher, and so I think it's going to be a big test for him.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, my whole thing is Notre Dame never really plays anybody tough.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're seeing them put up numbers against, and Ian Book putting up numbers, to me that never really tells the tale. Now that they're playing in the ACC and actually playing in a conference, playing good teams like UNC, Clemson, Virginia Tech, like they're playing good teams now, you're starting to see a little more of their identity. But I think this is Clemson's to lose. I think all the pressure's on Clemson in this game. But, I mean, you're at home.
For sure.
Notre Dame's at home, playing under touchdown Jesus. I mean, it's tough to pick against them, but Clemson is just that, they're just that good. I think they're just that good.
Well, the Sooners are finally back in Norman this weekend, and they will be taking on the Jayhawks at Owen Field. Can the Sooners pull off another W this weekend, or was the streak too good to be true?
Of course they're going to pick up another win.
Come on.
We're undefeated in
here.
November. How could you not pick the Sooners? And it's Kansas. I'm sorry. It's Kansas. Like, is it really going to be close? Like, I'm preparing to probably leave at like halftime. I'm going to the game. Like, it's really like mean to say that and be mean about it, but like Kansas is just that bad that they lost to Coastal Carolina. Like, I mean,
your team,
I have number 15 in the country.
Coastal Carolina doesn't play anybody. Their strength of schedule is awful, but I mean, they still beat Kansas. So if Coastal Carolina can beat Kansas, you can definitely beat Kansas by a big margin too.
And what's their score?
I got it by, I think the line is like 34 or something like that. I have them beating it. I have them over. I think it's going to be like at least a 35, 36-point game. That's just me. I think OU's just going to run it up. I don't have a total score. I think it'll be in the 62 to 7 or something like that. I don't know. Something crazy like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, again, I think OU is just too big, too strong. I mean, it's Kansas, like we said. I mean, especially without their star running back Puka Williams opting out. I mean, OU's got it big, 51-7.
Well, I'm going to have to take OU too. I think Kansas is going to come out with some trick plays in the beginning. I mean, they have nothing to lose at this point. I just don't see them standing a chance, but I think it'll be a good game for at least us OU fans to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And lastly, before we sign off, let's talk upset picks. Which underdog gets the win today? Ben?
My pick is Arkansas State over University of Louisiana. They're not a very big favorite, but hey, Arkansas State did upset Kansas State first game of the year, and I think the Red Wolves can do it again. I mean, the Raging Cajuns are 5-1 and looking really good, but hey, it's anybody's ball game to me in college football, so I think Arkansas State's got it, and I think it's going to be a close game, though. Definitely like a one-touchdown game.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm going to go with Arizona State over USC. And it's at the Coliseum. It's going to be a tough one for them, but I think they can do it. Jaden Daniels is going to go off, I think. Now, USC is going to score some points as well, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to be too much for him. The 9 a.m. kickoff is going to get to the Trojans a little bit too much, and it's going to be a close game, but Arizona State and Jaden Daniels is going to pull it off.
All right, well, I'm going to go with South Carolina over Texas A&M. I think that's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, no, I definitely like South Carolina over Aggies.
I mean, South Carolina did beat Auburn. I mean, that was a good game, and A&M did lose to LSU, skip that. But Colin Hill, the South Carolina quarterback, really needs to step it up, though, if he wants to bring South Carolina to that next level. I think they have all the potential, but they need to get to that next level if they expect for these upsets.
Yeah, you know what? I think A&M's a little bit overrated, too. I mean, I think the Florida game was a fluke. They got lucky.
Especially in the SEC conference.
They got blown out by Bama. So, I mean, that's more of how I see A&M, a team that can compete with other SEC teams, but against good SEC teams, they're not.
Well, and against Arkansas last weekend, that was a tough game.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas has been playing really well.
They have been.
They're definitely been a team to beat.
Aggressive.
Yeah, they're
Arkansas,
they're on the rise.
Hey, Brady Latham, look at him. You know, he's a beast right there.
That defense has been ball hawks all year.
Yeah, for sure.
All year.
Razorbacks, they're getting it down in Fayetteville.
Oh, yeah.
All right, BYU Boise, that game last night. What do y'all think about it?
Everybody probably wants to say that BYU's legit. I don't think so. I don't think BYU's legit. Great win, finally getting a win against a ranked opponent or a decent opponent for once. But Zach Wilson having the Heisman hype, I don't buy it. But BYU, I would take Cincinnati
BYU over Cincinnati?
I would take Cincinnati any day of the week
Cincinnati,
over BYU.
Zach Wilson's good, but I'm still
Zach
giving
Wilson's
it to the Bearcats.
good, but I don't buy the Heisman.
I'm giving it to the Bearcats.
All right, well, thank you for watching Game Day U here in Gaylord Hall at the University of Oklahoma. We'll be here next week, same time, same place. Keep up with Game Day U on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Ben Thomas, Parker Abels, and the whole crew, I'm Kaylee Tinglestad. Have a fun and safe game day. We'll see you next time.